this lesson we're talking about unit rates. But before we talk about unit rates, we're going to just talk about a rate. So before we had talked about ratios, where that was comparing two things, the amount of boys to the amount of girls, the amount of miles I've traveled to the amount of miles somebody else has traveled. Well, here we're talking about two different quantities, okay, or we have two different units, but there's a relationship between them, okay? So on your paper, I would like you to write down the definition for a rate, that it is a ratio, but it involves two quantities in different units. So before, if you had had inches and miles, those are still distance units. So we would have had to change one of those to the other to compare them. Well, here we're talking about how many miles we went in how many minutes. Okay, so there's a relationship between these two numbers. And the units are different. This one measures distance, this one measures time. Okay? So, some of your problems. Okay, so that's a rate, sorry. A unit rate is the rate for one unit of a given quantity. So let's go back to our 3 miles in 30 minutes. I want to know with the unit rate how many miles I go in 1 minute. So if I look at this as a fraction, okay, I look at it as 3 over 30. With the unit rate, I'm wanting one of these numbers to be 1. Usually it's the bottom one. So again, in this one, I'm wanting to know how far I can go in 1 minute. So I'm going to change this to 1 minute. Now, think back to fractions. What do I do to this denominator in order to get 1? What can I do to 30? That with fractions, with equivalent fractions, what can we do to change those? It's either multiply or divide. In this case, I'm dividing by 30, because 30 divided by 30 will give me 1. So that means I want to do the same thing to my numerator. So 30 minutes divided by 30 gives me 1 minute. I'm going to get my calculator out. Since we're using division, we have to watch the order. We are starting with the 3 miles. We're trying to divide that between the 30 minutes. So when I enter this in my calculator, I need to enter in 3 divided by 30. 3 has to be my first number. And it's going to be a decimal, and I get 1/10. So that means in 1 minute, I can go 1/10 of a mile. So this is an example of a unit rate, because we have 1 unit. Now, if you want to copy that down, how we would use this, there's a couple different ways even in real life that we use this. So when we talk about speed, if you look on the highway, the MPH, or if you look in the speedometer on your car, that means miles per hour. So how many miles do you go per 1 hour? Okay, this is a unit rate. So we can either write unit rates with the per, PER, or we write them with the slash. Heartbeats per minute. How many times does my heart beat in 1 minute? How many calories do I get in 1 serving? All of these are different ways that we use unit rates. So let's look at one. In September, Miss Bradford ran 3 1800ths of a mile in 30 minutes. On Saturday, she ran 4 6400ths miles in 44 minutes. When did she run the fastest? So this is hard to compare. Okay, I can easily tell when I went farther, but I'm wanting to know when I went fastest. So again, this is going back to our speed. Okay, I'm not really going to measure miles per hour, but looking at my units, I can measure in miles per minute. Okay, so miles per minute. That's what I'm going to be looking for. So I need to look through here. I'm looking for my relationships. Well, here's one, that I went 3 1800ths miles in 30 minutes. So that's one relationship or one rate. And then the 4 and 6400ths miles in 44 minutes is another relationship. So that's another rate. So rewriting each of those. And again, I want miles per minute. So miles is going to be on the top. Minutes is going to be in the bottom. And then do the same to the other. Okay, so here are my two rates, just starting with the rates. But again, to compare these, I can't do it in this form. If I change both of these to a unit rate, then I could. In other words, change, well, how many miles did I run in 1 minute here? How many miles did I run in 1 minute here? So this one, I'm going to draw a line down here. Oops. So these are my two different problems. So I had 30 minutes. I want to change it to 1 minute. So what do? I'm dividing by the 30. That's a 3. So if I do that to the bottom, I have to do that to the top. So I need to take my 3 and 1800ths miles and divide it by the 30 as well. So using my calculator, I get 0.106 miles. And I'm going to go ahead and write all 3 decimals there. Okay? So now, going over here, I want you to try this one on your own. I'm going to guide you through it though. What's the first thing you're going to do? We need to change this to a unit rate. So think about what we're changing. So if it's a unit rate, we want our denominator, our minutes, to be 1. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. How do we do that? We divide numerator and denominator by 44. So 44 divided by 44 gives me 1. So using my calculator, again I'm taking this many miles, dividing it between the 44 minutes. So I take 4 and 6400ths, divide by 44, and I get 0.105. And some more decimals, and that's miles. I ran out of room. So in this one, I went 106 thousandths miles in 1 minute. This one, I went 105 thousandths miles in a minute. When was I the fastest? Now it's easier to compare. Which one did I get it done quickest? Well, here, I went, in 1 minute, I could go 106 thousandths. Here I went 105 thousandths. So which one's fastest? It's here. I ran more. So even though it was less time, I actually did it faster. Okay? So this one, I had the faster speed. So now we're going to look at another kind. A special kind of unit rate is finding the unit cost. So this is a unit rate where we're involving money. Then I'm looking at how much does it cost for 1 unit, okay? This is what we use to compare prices. So here I have an example. I can buy a 12 and 6/10 ounce bag of M&Ms for $3 or a huge 42-ounce bag for $12.79. I want to know if I'm going to be buying a lot of M&Ms because I'll eat them anyway, which one is cheaper? Well, it's easier to compare if I would find out how much 1 ounce of these cost and how much I'm paying for 1 ounce of the bigger bag. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through here and look for my 2 relationships, okay? So one is that I am buying 12 and 6/10 ounces for $3, and then I am buying 42 ounces for $12.79. Those are going to be my 2 rates that I'm going to start with. So with the unit cost, again, I said that I'm looking for how much I am spending per ounce. So that means my money is going to be in my numerator, and my ounces is going to be on the bottom, because I'm eventually wanting to find the cost per ounce, or the cost per pound, or the cost per package. That's what we're doing when it's a unit cost. So your money is always going to be in the numerator. So I'm going to do the same thing, write a new rate. I will have $12.79 for 42 ounces. Now, I need to find the unit rate for each of these. So for this one, I'm trying to find out how much does 1 ounce cost. So I need to take that $3 and divide it amongst the 12 6/10 ounces. So I'm dividing both of these by 12 6/10, and I get 0.24. So of my smaller bag, it costs about 1/4 for 1 ounce. Now I need to do the same thing over here. How much does it cost for 1 ounce? Well, that means I'm dividing the denominator by 42, so I have to divide my numerator by 42. So if I take $12.79 divided by 42, I get that this one, is 30 cents per ounce. So my smaller bag is about 1/4, the bigger bag is about 30 cents per ounce. So which one's the better buy? Which one am I getting more for less money? Or am I getting the same amount for less money? Well, in this case, it's the smaller bag. So the better buy is the 12 6/10 ounces for $3.